And then inside the wheel, there's gonna, can you see that, or is that kind of hard to see? Hold on. Nothing has slid in smoother without sunning. Damn you, Jetty. You spread the cheeks and you hit on it. Oh my God. I can't.
Sorry, bro, but this show's about me.
What's up? So I got this bike here. Customer has been seeing my videos and noticing the wheel spacers. So he wants custom wheel spacers on the front of the bike. So what I am going to do on this though is, while we have it off, we're going to go ahead and throw a new tire on. This one's got dry rot, so it's got cracks in between the treads of the tire, and it is an older style. It's an ME 880. I think we're going to go with a Cruise Tech, Metzler Cruise Tech on the front now. And then when the back one needs one, we can do the matching Cruise Tech for the back. They'll both be Metzler. So this bike has tapered bearings, roller bearings. You have to manually pack them and you put them in there. This is an older built bike. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace that and going to go with sealed bearings. Now here's the deal. When you have an older bike like this or older set of wheels, forget the bike. When you have an older set of wheels, it doesn't matter what you're working on, you can run. I'm going to do this on the FXR. I just did it to my Builder Bus bike. So the upgrade sounds simple. Sounds like, you know, you just press out the, take out the bearings, press out the inner races, and slap in some sealed bearings and you're good to go, but it's not that at all. The problem is the outer diameter of a sealed bearing is very hard to find. That will press right into that. The outer diameter on it is, you can kind of see that the bearing, the outer wall is a little bit thinner, and that's gonna make the difference. That's what's gonna make these press in. And when you do a conversion like this, you are gonna have to change out the inner crush tube. So the crush tube, what it does is it stops the bearings from pushing in too far. So when you have two bearings that are pushing against the inner pieces, you want to make sure that crush tube is just the right length. It can't be too short, because if it's too short, it's going to push. When you tighten up the front end of the bike, it's going to tighten up so much that it's going to put those bearings in a bind, and you're going to blow out the bearings. They're going to get really, really hot. Really. You're going to put them in a bind and they're going to get really hot. When that happens, it's going to eat up that grease, and then you're going to have a bearing failure, and then you could get hurt. That's with tapered bearings. That also goes for sealed bearings. You don't want too much tension on it, because if this is being held by one thing and you're pushing on this, you're pushing against the side. You're giving side load on the bearings instead of them running freely. On a tapered bearing, if you have it too wide, then it's not going to let the bearing seat, and then your wheel's going to kind of walk until it like bounces off this bearing and then bounce off that bearing. So then it's going to have some slop, and it's going to make the wheel walk. It's not going to cause like heat damage, but it's going to cause the bike to be very shaky going down the road. You're going to go to turn and it's going to want to stay straight until the bearings kind of touch. So the crush spacers are really important to have set correctly. When you change them out from tapered bearings to the sealed bearings, it's a different length. I believe it is longer. Your crush tube is going to be longer on a sealed bearing than it is a tapered bearing. When you change the bearings out, you will have to change your wheel spacers also. So the ones on the outside of the bearings. So you're going to have to change the bearings, you're going to have to change the crush tubes, and you're going to have to change the outside bearings that go between your wheel and your forks. So there's a lot that goes into it when you do this conversion. It's not like, hey, you just throw it in there and boop, boop, you're done. You have to change spacers and stuff like that. That's what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to go ahead and get this wheel broken off. I'm going to pull the bearings out, and then we're going to have to pull the races out, clean the wheel all out because we don't need grease in there anymore. Then we're going to go ahead and press in one bearing. I'll show you how to do the measurement for the crush tube. And then we'll press in the other bearing. We'll get it installed. Then we'll start measuring for wheel spacers and get this bad boy dialed in. Now this one is going to be a little bit different because of the wheel spacers. It's going to be multiple wheel spacers on the right-hand side. This is my left arm, so I said left hand, but it's on the right side of the bike. This is a Springer. The brake is on the right-hand side. Normal brakes, hydraulic front ends have the brake on the left-hand side, so that also confused me, but on the right-hand side. A Springer front brake floats. It's not solid mounted, pinched straight to the fork tube, because when the Springer's moving, all of that stuff starts moving around. You don't want this brake to be it would get in a jam and it would try to pull off the rotor. So it's got to kind of float a little bit. So it's going to be a little loose, but that's just how they are. You don't want them crazy loose, but you don't want them tight. You want them to float just a little bit, but you don't want them flopping around. So it is going to be a little bit different on this bike compared to what most people are running on their bikes. But as far as the bearing conversion and the wheel spacing and all that other stuff on the right-hand side, you can take those notes, and then when you do a right-hand spacer, you would just do it normal because your caliper rides on the fork leg and not on the axle, so it's going to make it a lot easier. You would just take whatever we do on this left-hand side and you would apply it to the right-hand side. So let me go ahead and get this wheel off and we'll get started. So now that we have the wheel off, I would suggest you put the wheel somewhere where you can work with it and you're not going to mess it up. This is an older wheel. I'm sure if I was to drop it and mess it up, I couldn't replace it. And then I'd have to send it off, get it stripped and re-chrome, which probably have to go to California to get it done correctly. And like, I don't want all that mess. So luckily I have an extra lift that's unused right now. So I just chalked it up in there. So now it's holding it for me. So other than that, we're going to start pulling out all these ugly ass spacers. Seal remover and pop these bad boys out. So yeah, so tapered bearing. I'm gonna put them together and then I'm gonna measure it. External diameter, internal diameter. I might have a regular sealed bearing so you can see the difference on it. It's something that you couldn't chuck in a lathe to take the extra material off because it's gonna spin. So yeah, it's best to just get you some other spacer, tapered wheel bearing. It's the original crush tube. Like I said, I'll show you how to measure this so that way you can put the right one in, the correct one in. I'm gonna hold on to the spacers, just, I don't know why, just make sure I know which one's left, which one's right. Like I said, I'm gonna make custom ones anyways. That's another thing too, is to set the crush tube spacing or end plate correctly. You'll find these in there sometimes. It's a wheel bearing spacer, and a lot of them will be tapered, so that way it sits against the flange in the wheel, but then just the inside touches the actual bearing itself. So that way, yep. And then that way, if the crush tube's a little bit off, you can space this, you can put little shims, little spacers in there to get it dialed in, but we're gonna dial it in. You don't need spacers. Wheel will come in and out with just the external wheel spacers. So you can see this one actually had that wheel spacer and then, is it one? No, two shims. So they dialed it in. Next, we're gonna need a new tire. We're gonna need, I hate it when my toolbox drawer gets stuck. There it goes. So just so you can see the difference, I have this as a test bearing. I used to, before I figured out how to measure and stuff, which I'm going to show you, I used to use this bearing because I used to push it in and then do all my measurements, make sure everything fit right, and then I used to remove it. Well, when you remove a sealed bearing, that's, to me, it's one-time use, because what you're doing to remove a sealed bearing out of a twin cam or late model bike that has sealed bearings, even spool hub chopper bikes that have sealed bearings, once you install it, when you install it, you're going to push on the outside race, so you're pushing on this piece to install it. to get it out, you can't grab it from there because it's pushed in all the way. So what you have to do is you got to get in and you got to grab it from the inside and pull it out. Well, when you do that, you're putting so much force on the bearing. That's that lateral force. It damages the bearings. So it is highly frowned upon to reuse a sealed bearing. So that's why this one says test on it, is because it was my test bearing. This is the one that I press in the good bearing, then I measure my crush tube, then I press this one in just to make sure everything's good, then I pull it out, make any adjustments if I need to. If I don't, then I press in the good bearing, done. So that's why this one says test, but I don't know if you can see the difference. I'm gonna hold it level at the bottom. That's the difference. That's the width from a twin cam bearing to a sealed bearing. And then I'll pull the race out and we'll do all the measurements and you'll see what I'm talking about. So put those there. My chingazo, Spanish word for like a hit, a punch. Then you do need some specialty tools to get this done. Should be these ones. Sometimes after you use them for a while, they kind of get damaged and then they don't bite very much. But these I purchased from Jim's, the transmission people. So what these do is these go in. I think I showed it on the getting the bike ready for Sturgis. Put these in the bearing race and then you're going to spread it apart. So bad. You're going to spread them cheeks. And then you're going to put this piece which pushes the pressure on there that keeps them pressed apart. So when you hit on it, it's going to start. You spread the cheeks and you hit on it. Oh my God. I can't. Okay. Being serious here. So what it's going to do is you're going to put these in and then you're going to spread them apart. Then you'll install this adapter that goes in there to keep lateral pressure. So when you're trying to remove it with a hammer, it won't fall out. So like so. Put these here. Put this one here. Now because I'm going to be trying to remove it coming outwards, if I put this on this side and I hit on it, it's just going to try to knock this out. So I got to put this on the inside. This attaches to that tool. Now we just got to make sure it goes through the wheel. And it does. So now I need to went right in. So let's see. And just like that, voila! Let's see that again in instant replay. How about slow-mo? So, see the bearings, the height. This is too big to get pressed in there. They're both 3/4. I know this is 3/4 because I know what bike this went in. There it is. Sealed bearing. But like I was saying, the difference is this one's showing to be 0.652. .608. So this one is thicker than this one. So when you press it in, guess what? It's going to be a shorter tube. So you will need crush tube material. Usually what I use for a 3/4 axle is you use a 1-inch OD 120 wall seamless. You got to use a seamless because if you don't use it, which is DOM, draw over mandrel. Check it out. I bet you didn't even think I knew what that meant, huh? DOM tubing, drawn over mandrel. What DOM tubing is instead of it being a piece of tubing that's been formed and then welded and then ground smooth and shipped out like that, because you'll put your finger in there and you'll feel like a bead all the way through the inside. Well, the axle's not going to like that. It's not going to want to go in there. So you got to do the DOM tubing. There's a shaft in there with an external piece, and then they shove the material through there, and that's what makes the DOM tubing, drawn over a mandrel. There's no seam in there at all. It's seamless, basically seamless tubing. That's what you need to make a spacer. So let me get the one on the other side out. We'll press the first bearing in. We'll take some measurements. I'll show you how to do that. Boink. Now I gotta find all my parts and tools and up. Of course, they're only halfway. All right. So I got the races out. So everyone I've talked to says you always want to load the brake side bearing first. Why? I don't know. I'm just assuming that's the one that that way you know exactly where that's going to be every time. I don't know. So we're going to load brake side bearing first. So let me get another paper. Oh, here it is. Special tools also, or you could use a press if you have a press. If you don't have a press that's big enough for something like this, what I recommend is like a tool. Like even if you invest in this tool here, you could make something so that this would help press it in, but you want it to be straight. So that's kind of the hard part. What I use is I use also Jim's tools. First part of the tool is the, well, hell, that's not gonna work. It'll get it started. So the reason why I say that's not going to work is the Jim's tools are made for the twin cam type sealed bearings. So I put that on there, 3/4. Do you notice how it's a little bit smaller than the outside diameter of this bearing? You see that? What that is once you push it inside the aluminum, it lets the spacer or the actual pressing part of the tool go in as well, and then it comes right out. Well, here's the problem. This bearing is larger in diameter than this bearing. So what does that mean? It's only going to go to where it hits. It's going to stop. Once the bearing goes in, that's going to stop. It's not going to let it fully seat. So might have to make me a special one because I don't remember how I did it the last time. I think what I did is I started it and I got it going to where it, so now it's going in and it's starting to install square, nice and squarely in the bore. And then once I got to where I had to stop, I believe I used like a socket, something like this, 1 3/16 socket. See how it's smaller than the bore? So I think that's what I did. Then I can go back with the tool and it should go in smoothly. So let's try that just so that you can see. Sometimes if you don't have the right tools, you can still work and get the job done with the tools that you have available to you. So, but one thing for sure, you definitely need to go and get like a pressing lubricant. This one is Sunnen, S-U-N-N-E-N. Shit, hold on. Yes, I've gotten to that age. These aren't just safety glasses. These aren't safety glasses. These are actually prescription glasses so I can see far. And then at the bottom, they got bifocals built in so I can see close. So like my cell phone. So anyways, Sunnen, it's the 8200L lubricant, whatever. Goodson is the products that make this, but what it is it's it helps stuff press in. I'll tell you what, people try grease, people try I've tried all kinds of different stuff to press things in. Nothing has gone in so, oh my God, I feel nothing has slid in smoother without Sunnen. Slides right in. Anyways, this is probably the best lubricant I've used to press in pieces, wheel bearings, neck bearings, cam stuff. I've used this on cam jobs, like when you're, forgot, you're gonna make me say the wrong information. I'm gonna get destroyed in the comments, but like the 1-year model of cams that You have to press the cams in. What's it, 07 and later? You have to press the cams in. It doesn't have just the roller bearings. It's got like sealed bearings or bushings or something like that. So you got to lubricate them, put them in the tool, and then press them at one time. Bleep, the butt. I use that stuff, and man, like I can almost press it with my hand, and then keeps it from getting all. It helps it a lot. This is bad, huh? It just helps it work a lot better pressing stuff in. It goes in square and straight. And as far as pressing stuff in and doing it square, this is also a jibs tool. And what it is basically just a long ass bolt. I don't know the size of it. And there's the nut on the other side. And then it's got these are bearings. Let me show you real quick. So these are like a surface bearing. So what it is like this hits on one thing and this hits on the other. So when it like gets pressing against something, when you're doing it, it's not trying to grind or gouge into the material it's pressing against. Kind of just slides with the pressure, with side pressure. So it's a little bearing. Kind of weird. Oh, I see the ball bearings inside. Yeah, there's ball bearings. But anyways, so on this side, I will run it with that piece in. I will slide it through here. Then you're going to lubricate the bearing. Pull on the hole. Then you're going to go back with the... Oh, my bad. Hold up. Wait a minute.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
I put two bearings on one side. Thought it looked a little thick. Here. Put a bearing. I don't think it matters which side the bearing goes on, but I always put the smaller side on there. Get some wrenches. Yeah, 3/4 on this side, and that's probably going to be 7/8. Close enough. I'm telling you, that lube is kind of like cheating, man. See that? See how the bearing's pressed in? But you also see how it's pressed just flat and even with the wheel, but that's not correct. It needs to go all the way in. Gotta make sure it seats. I'm gonna put that socket in there. We're gonna now you gotta make sure it lines up on the outer race of the bearing, because if it doesn't, you'll crush the insides and you basically just ruin your bearing. So when it gets crazy tight, you know you've bottomed out. Oops. There you have it. One bearing, one sealed bearing installed. So now it's time to measure for the crush tube. This is the crush tube that's coming out. This is one that I've kind of quickly prepped and it's ready for modification. We're gonna have to trim it down. Obviously it's way long. It's probably only gonna be that much longer, but this is how I'm gonna show you how we figure that out. Had to get rid of the nerdy glasses because then I really look like a teacher, and I'm not trying to like really school you, but somewhat school you. So inside a wheel, there is, so here's your wheel hub, okay? And then inside the wheel, there's gonna, can you see that, or is that kind of hard to see? Hold on. So of course, walking over here, I smeared grease right across the whole thing. So anyways, so you're gonna have your hub This one has a taper in it. And then you're gonna have like your wheel comes through here. So inside the wheel, there are little ledges. So there's a little ledge like this. It goes like that, and then whatever, like that. Obviously you can't press a big ass bearing through a little squish like that, but whatever. So there's ledges in here, okay? So what happens is when you press the bearing in, it hits against this ledge. So let's say this is the bearing we just pushed in. On the brake side, this is the non-brake side. So there's our bearing. Now the bearing has the race, the outer race on the bearing, and the inner races on the bearing. And then you're gonna have your 3/4 hole for the axle to go through. So your axle comes through here, whoop, and there it looks like a nut. We get the size, I can put shading, whatever, you get what I'm saying. So here's the bearing. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna wanna measure from here to here. Now what it is a bearing, so you have your outer race, inner race bearing, okay? So looking from the side shot, that inner and outer race is exactly the same size. So the bearing is pressed in against this ledge, which is like the stop. So that stops the bearing and that locates where it needs to be. So you're gonna measure from there, right here on the inner race with your calipers to this ledge where this other bearing is gonna sit. So you're gonna wanna measure from there to there with your calipers. Now, once you get this measurement, you're gonna wanna add 7/1000ths to that measurement. So that's gonna be plus 0.007 to whatever that number is, okay? So let's go to the wheel and let's find this measurement. Okay, so let's see what we have here. So inside my caliper, so see how like the calipers, it's got the little notch there. So this is gonna sit against that ledge on this side, and this is gonna go down and touch the bearing race. Boop. So I'm touching the bearing race. Now I'm gonna push the calipers in until it touches. Boop. I don't know if you can read that. 4.039. So we got 4.039. We're gonna add our 7/1000ths. So that's gonna be 16. So 4.046. That's the size that the new spacer needs to be. This is the old one. So I'm gonna run over there. We're gonna do a quick chop of the chop saw to get it real close, and then we're gonna set it up on the lathe and we're gonna cut it down to where it's the exact size we want. Get the chamfer, put a chamfer on the inside and the outside so that we don't have any rough edges, and then we'll be ready to install it. Let's go to the lathe. I only like to chuck it in as just enough to where it's biting really well, but I can still get my calipers in here. I do have a DRO, but sometimes I like to double check, triple check all the checks before I finalize it. So that's what we're doing here. So I just mark a little scribe of where I need to be. So close. Couple more passes. We are on the money, honey. So to deburr the outside, I just use some, it's not Scotch-Brite. What's it called? So I hit that with a file, a little bit of, I forgot what this is called, sandpaper on a roll. I forgot what it's called. And for all you guys that want to know, how do you know if you've deburred it good enough? Would you stick your pee-pee in there? If you would stick your pee-pee in there, you've deburred it enough. Unfortunately for me, mine won't fit, so for you guys. But there we go. 4.046 on the money. Let's go. So, do you remember when I told you, oh yeah, see, this is the new material we're going to use and stuff, and it was like that difference, and I told you, no, it's going to be closer to that? Well, told you. I've done this once or twice. A little bit longer. So, get this installed. Now what we'll have to do is, I have to go get the other bearing, but this spacer will go in, make sure all that crap is out. Forgot to blow it off, but you can always just put a rag in there and whoop, nice and clean. So set this spacer in there. This is going to help locate it over her, up in her. Grab the other bearing. It's got the other bearing. Don't forget to lube the bearing. Now it's pressing in nice and smooth, nice and easy. Then remember, it's going to bottom out when I get to the cone of the wheel hub. And we're bottomed out. Don't want to mess up the chrome, so I'm going to back off here on this one. Beep. Put that socket in there. Line it up with the outer race so you don't damage the bearing. Then you can put your fingers in there. You can make sure, check if there's any slop. No slop. Yep. You just want to make sure that there's pressure on there so that way that spacer is going to sit in there just right. So that way when everything's pressed in, to put the axle in and stuff like that, you just beep, beep, straight shot. If not, you're going to be trying to fumble around and try to get the spacer, the crush tube in there, the right spot. But everything's all dialed in. On these, you can put seals back in. So once you put the seal back in there, that's going to give you added protection. That's for like if you're going to run your stock wheel spacers and stuff like that. Not going to worry about if you're not going to run custom spacers like I build. You put that spacer in there. It's just going to help keep a lot of the dirt and stuff out of those bearings, and it just helps with it, and it makes it look more stock looking. If you're a fan of the you know, you don't want to see this big gap with your thing, and if you don't want to see this big gap with the wheel spacer here and the big gap all the way to the bearing, then yeah, just put this little bad boy in there, put your wheel spacer in there, cut your new length to wheel spacers, and you're on the road. Me, I like my custom wheel spacers so they protect the wheels and the bearings and everything like that, because I put zero, like very little gap in there, just enough so that they're not touching, so it spins freely. But I put my wheel spacers, I measure all that stuff out and cone them and do all that stuff, so I'll be taking care of that. I'm not going to bore you because I think I've done like 6 videos of me making wheel spacers, so I'm going to machine these wheel spacers out. I'll show you when we go through and mock up. If there's anything I need to tell you, I'm going to add it in this video, but if there's something I need to explain, I will do it at that time. So let me run over and start measuring for the wheel spacers. Yep. Let me clean up this mess first and then we'll run over there. All right. So it's been a long day. It's a Sunday. Had a lot of visitors on a Sunday. That's crazy. I had actually this customer come by and we talked for a little bit about some other stuff. And my wife came by, did an oil change, but whatever. Got the spacer. I know I usually do the ones that kind of dish out, and that's what that hub looks like, but it's so close towards the end of the springer that just wouldn't look right. So that's what I came up with. It's got more of an outer radius instead of the inner radius. And then it stepped down for the bearing to go inside the hub. And put this little cool little radius looking thing on it to keep the outer part from touching the springer. So let's put it on the bike real quick and I'll show you how it looks. So this bearing, this is gonna go towards the inside. So we'll push that there. I'm gonna give the axle a little slide through. This is the little bolt piece that, and this actually uses the wrench. Somebody's damaged it, but I'll try to see if I can clean that up or get replacements from 3-2 choppers. If they have any. Somebody didn't take their time, probably over torqued it. There's actually set screws in the bottom of this, so once you get it locked into place, there's 2 little set screws right here that actually goes in there, and that and the other side looks similar. There's a little groove in there, so a little set screw goes in there. Keep this from backing out. Pretty smart. So there we have the axle spacer. Yeah. Got the same gap. So for me, that's a good stopping point for today. Come in tomorrow. We'll machine the spacers for the brake side. Like I said, this is a floating one, so it's going to be look a little different. It's more, that side's going to be more measurements than really sculpting it out and stuff. Because like that outer radius piece, I think I redid that 4 times because I kept having. So yeah, I have hours just in that one spacer. So, but it's all about the deets, man. Harley's Garage, we got the deets. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Let's go. It's a good stopping spot. Cool. Yo, so it's been a day or so. Got the front tire mounted with the new Cruise Tech, Metzler Cruise Tech. Come to find out, check this out. Which, if you can't see, is this. Which means that tire was 20 years old. No wonder it had dry rot cracks. The tread was great, but that tire was old. So I looked at the back tire, guess what? Same thing. They were manufactured in 2003, so that's not a good tire. So we just got back, excuse me. So I just got back from Polisher. The boys at Funky Town shine, and I love shouting them out because they take care of me, and then the quality of work is just unreal. And look at that. Get out of here with that. Seems like on some of my videos, sometimes like lint and stuff is on there, like the anodizing I saw the other day, the video I was watching, I was like, it looks like the anodize is messed up. It's not, it's like gloss. I don't know if it's from these little towels or what, but even that's just sick. So I'll put that together. I did get back from Drag Specialties. I picked up another Cruise Tech 240 4018 for the rear. So it'll have fresh tires front and rear. This bike will be ready for whatever rally next he wants to go to. I don't know. We're talking Daytona, but we'll see. Oh, the other one. So I'm gonna get the wheel back installed. I just rebuilt the front master cylinder on the clutch side. It was leaking a little bit, and he was come back from a ride, and he'd have like little spots on his hand, the brake fluid from leaking. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw the front end back together and put a new rear tire on it, and this bad boy should be able to go. Yeah, so let me do that. Once I get everything back together, the front end back together, I'll spin it so you can see the new spacer and how all the alignment and everything looks. Yeah, so we'll go from there. All right. And there we have it, all back together. Front end's all back together and working great. Doesn't spin the best because the weight of the brake caliper, it wants to make the bike fall over. There it goes. I've got a clean little wheel spacer. Just caps off the end of the wheel real nice. And I'm gonna have to get that. But anyways, it just caps off the wheel real nice. And then this side didn't really need a big spacer, so it just has the little shim of a spacer. But you get the gist of it. Yo, damn you, Jetty. Yo, so I've never taken one of these apart. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've done just a single caliper, but this is dual calipers. It's got a crossover line from one caliper to the other, like just to change a tire. Maybe I should just let him go home on this tire. It's got a good tread. No, I'm not gonna do that. But I'm not gonna film this because I'm gonna be cussing, and I'm probably gonna like take some stuff apart and sit down for a little bit and think about it and kind of calculate it, because it's one thing if it was a black powder coated frame or a chrome frame, you know what I mean? Like it might get little scuffs or something, but usually the powder coat's pretty durable, and so is chrome. This is a fully airbrushed frame and pulley, chrome wheel with a bunch of spacers, both sides. Like it's just gonna be a nightmare. My hydraulic jack that holds wheels up isn't working right now, so right now I have this chair holding the tire. And I got the front wheel chalked in there, and I'm using a center jack at the back of the bike to help lift the bike up and down, because this tire probably won't clear this part. It sits in here, so when I roll it out, it's probably going to hit the very back of the fender. So I'm going to have to raise the back end up, but axle came out pretty smoothly, so everything should come out okay. But like I said, I got to push it forward, get the belt off, which to get the belt off, you got to take the calipers off, I'm noticing. So that's going to be 4 bolts. Take the calipers off, then probably try to muscle, and then I'll have to unbolt this linkage, this rod. So just do me a favor, wish me luck, okay? All right. Actually, I will let you guys watch, and I'll just do it as time lapse. So cue the music. So actually, that wasn't too bad. Once I took the calipers off, I was able to push the wheel forward a little bit. If this rack was a little bit lower, it would have been a lot easier, but yeah, for the most part, calipers are all connected, just sitting there. Slid it back, got the wheel spacers out. Unfortunately, that one fell out, so I had to check for damage on that. Yeah, and once I got the wheel spacers out, raised the back end of the bike. Tardar! Whoa, whew, scared me. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and bust this tire out, put it back together, and then we'll pull it off the lift. Well, that's a wrap. Got this one all finished up. New tire. Got the new wheel spacer machine polished, installed. The one on the other side, it had a slight hydraulic leak on the PM clutch master cylinder, so I replaced that and got that all cleaned up, and then got that Metzler Freshie on there, so this bike is safe for another few years. And that does it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. There'll be more coming up. If you are interested in the sealed bearing conversion for Timken bearing wheels, there's a link down below. Just hit that and it'll take you right to the place where you can buy it. It's going to come with a crush tube that's oversized, so you can cut it down to the length you need. Anything else, just leave a comment, and appreciate y'all watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and y'all have a good one. I'm Adam Garley, and I'm out. Peace!